Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
This is John Summerall, head football coach at Troy. You're listening to the Fun Belt Podcast.
If you didn't know before, now you know why they call this the Fun Belt.
Very excited about the Sun Belt.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
The state of Sun Belt football is the strongest in our history.
I saw Fun Belt Conference, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I got to join the show. It sounds a lot of fun.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of Fun Belt Podcast with me. Oh, wait, before I even move on with that, I wanted to mention that we're on the Believe Network, the most powerful podcasting network in the universe. And with me, as always, is Shane Metlin from the Daily News Record, and Dusty Thibodeau from the Warhawk Report. Welcome back, guys. I am back. After a brief sabbatical, I was gone Wednesday. I really hate missing it. Got caught up in some stuff. But this weekend, pretty wild. Including some really wild shit. From James Madison, Kurt Segnetti, pulling out the cell phone, showing the refs, hey, you missed this call. Shane, what the heck?
Oh, it was interesting. It was wild, as you said. Kurt was apologetic today on the Sun Belt call for technically breaking some rules there, having a cell phone in his hand and showing it to the officials. It wasn't his cell phone. It was a young staff videographer for JMU's, social media accounts and stuff, was the one who kind of said, hey, look at this. And then it went from there. It was fun. It was funny. I guess kind of no harm, no foul with a public reprimand from the league later on Monday. So, it was.
What difference does it make, though, for Signetti? He doesn't have an AD that can really drop the hammer on him. So, he's going to bend and break every rule he can.
Well, yeah.
And who has the stones to even reprimand Signetti? I'd be afraid to get that icy cold stare from the guy.
Yeah. It was kind of funny that both Marshall and JMU got the public reprimands from the league for their technology this week.
Yes, from what I understand, I think Tibbs has the lowdown on that one. Maybe you have the lowdown, but that was I think we saw this infraction. UMass and New Mexico State, first game of the year in week 0, where they had the drone out at New Mexico State and they had to kind of chase it away.
But how great is the video footage?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be tremendous. It might suck.
Yeah. I understand the rule. I don't think the intention of the rule was to not get video of your team taking the field. It's like don't spy on the other team with a drone when they're out doing stuff. Not get a cool intro video.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way, that you can't use electronics in games.
Oh, you mean at Houston Astros when you're putting vibrators in people's pants to?
Easy there, Jeremy. I think we're still children rated.
Are we? I don't know anymore. But no, yeah. I think what they do, they call it a safety concern, right, Shane? They're afraid that, I don't know, something haywire will go with the drone or whatever. It's not licensed. No one knows where it comes from. I never really thought of it as a tool to steal signs, though. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's the bigger issue. Who knows? I thought it was more like the technology of the video. But
do you think Keith Gill was out there with like a net chasing it?
Like one of those butterfly nets that you used to catch like lunatics with?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. That seems like something in his purview.
There's the graphic we need for this week's show, Jeremy.
All right, well, I'll work that out.
Keith Gill chasing a drone with a net.
Also, in news of the wacky, maybe you guys have a little more details than I have, but a Trident made its appearance at the Texas State game against Nevada. Big brouhaha on social media made it sound like some band member from the Bobcats hurled a Trident, kind of Anchorman style, at Nevada players. like panic ensued, people thrown out of the game. That's not really what happened, though, right?
Viva La Boobcat. How great is it that they steal I guess it was the turnover trident that Nevada had.
Oh,
You leave it to the band. They steal the trident. They give it back to Nevada. I mean, it was a playful, forceful, make sure it gets there toss in the direction of the coach.
uh-huh.
There was no harm. They were merely admitting their wrongs and returning the trident to Nevada.
And when you throw a trident, it's kind of like throwing a frisbee, right? You got to commit. You can't just sort of half throw a trident. You've got to full shoulder to elbow extension, right? You got
to make sure it gets there.
Yeah, or it's sort of like a dull knife. It's unsafe unless you hurl it correctly.
But yes, the Anchorman references all weekend long were fantastic. We're classic.
Yeah.
I love Lamp.
GJ Kinney, it should have been the guy who threw the anchor. That would have been, or not the anchor. I'm sorry, the trident. That would have been an awesome page in his legend that he's creating, that he's authoring every day in San Marcos. But other than the wild and crazy guys, we had some pretty good football. In fact, like the first 5 or 6 games were like just big wins for the Sun Belt. It was kind of like it was just one after another, just knocking them out left and right. So without further ado, Tibbs, why don't we run them down? Why don't you put up the big list?
Thursday night,
Yeah.
Darren Granger did Darren Granger things as the Panthers moved to 4-0, first time in program history. They beat the Shants. Does that mean that Darren Granger is now the face of the Sun Belt and the premier quarterback of the league since he downed Grayson Golden Child McCall?
I think there are still candidates out there for that. But yeah, I kind of think it has to be Granger, right? And the other story to this is, are the Chanticleers cooked? I mean, we kind of said it amongst ourselves that maybe Jamie Chadwell was kind of moving on to greener pastures while the getting was good. They didn't look too good against Georgia State. I mean, they kind of did Chanticleer stuff, Grayson McCall stuff at times, but it really didn't look like the old Chanticleer team.
Yeah, Chanticleers are not quite what they used to be. It doesn't seem like. I don't know if was Jamie Chadwell getting out of town before things started to go downhill a little bit. It's hard to say. I mean, they still have Grayson McCall, but you remember those teams that were really, really good a couple of years ago. It was really their defense, those crazy molded linebackers and everybody who was really kind of, driving the ship for them big time. And and Darren Granger, I don't know what else you can say about him. He's carried that team to 4-0.
Well, I tell you what, that defensive line for Coastal did break through a lot, but Granger was just too elusive. Like as soon as the Coastal Carolina defensive line busted through that Georgia State offensive line, Granger would just take off, or he'd create a play in some other way. He did look tipped. He did look really good, and you might be right. He might have cemented, for the time being, the best quarterback in the Sun Belt.
I wonder if he could grow a mullet.
I don't know. We should ask him. If only he was at Sunbelt Media Days.
Well, if you wouldn't have gotten him sick, maybe he would have rolled up to Sunbelt Media Days and been a star component there of the Funbelt podcast.
Missed opportunity.
Saturday morning, we got to go to Lower Alabama and see Troy against Big Red, Western Kentucky. The Trojans dominated the game statistically, but only got a 27-24 win over Western Kentucky. Gunnar Watson, 349 yards and 1 touchdown. Kamani Vidal, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, tip to top, they were all over this game, but just unable to really effectively put the game away.
I'll tell you one thing though. This is the one game I really missed. Like I totally struck out on. I really thought Western Kentucky just had too much offense for Troy's defense to keep up with. And quite frankly, even you're right. The score they never did get away from Western Kentucky, but I thought Western Kentucky might get away from Troy. And actually, Troy's performance did impress me a little bit. Kind of reaffirmed that maybe Troy isn't as much trouble as I thought Troy was in.
Yeah, Austin Reed, quarterback who normally puts up big numbers, was just okay against Troy's defense, and that probably was the difference in the game because Gunnar Watson I was surprised that he was able to put up that kind of yardage 2 weeks in a row. JMU's secondary is a little suspect, and he had big numbers against them. To do it against Western Kentucky, maybe he's in that conversation too. If we start talking about the good quarterbacks in this league, maybe he's crawling up there. I don't know. He's definitely serviceable.
He's in the good stratosphere. He throws so many picks. You just don't know. I don't know. I feel like the defense is still the star of Troy. Do you feel that way, Tibbs? Do you feel like Troy is still a defense team?
I don't know what to think of them. I feel like this week they were offensive. Next week they might be defensive. Mm-hmm. I don't think they've played a complete game to say that Troy is Troy. I feel like that it's very much a week by week. Let's see what we get out there on the field. I think that in the James Madison game, honestly, I think that was a better defensive team than what we saw this week. They were obviously all offensive. 4 straight weeks of P5 wins for the Sun Belt Conference as Marshall took down Virginia Tech 24-14. Rashid Ali, the offensive story, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it was that defense that really held on late. Marshall jumped out to that big lead in the game and then just had to kind of hold on for dear life in the second half. What'd y'all see out of that game that really impressed y'all?
Well, kind of what you saw, defense. Cam Fancher still, to me, the jury's still out with him. Of course, Rashid Ali is the man. I think he was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Week this week. Just a great player. But even he had trouble. I saw him get nailed in the backfield a few times. To me, it's that Marshall defense. I mean, those guys are going to be known for that defense this year as they were last year. I forget who they have next. Is it JMU that they have next?
No.
Okay, well, never mind.
Old Dominion. Marshall and Old Dominion.
Okay, I know the JMU's coming up, and I feel like that's going to be a pretty good defensive struggle. But yeah, I watched a pretty big chunk of that game, and Virginia Tech's not good. Virginia, technically, they play football, but they're not very good this year. It was good that Marshall took care of business against Virginia Tech. I don't know if it's a signature win though.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the worry. I mean, it's good that they got through this game with Cam Fancher throwing 2 interceptions, but that's what you don't want him to do. You want him to just manage the game, not turn it over. You're not going to get 400 yards passing from that guy. If you can get, 1 touchdown through the air and no interceptions, I think they're in fairly good shape. But, to escape against a Power 5 team with Fancher throwing a couple interceptions, I think they probably got to feel pretty fortunate to have held on in that one.
Well, regardless, good shape, right? The 4-0. 4-0, right? Are they 4-0?
3-0. They've already had a bye.
They beat the bye, though.
Undefeated.
So technically 4-0.
They beat the bye, so 4-0, yeah. So it's still in great shape. You got like the team. Well, I guess we'll have to see if Fancher is the guy or not. I just don't know. But still, great performance, great win.
We talked earlier about Darren Granger doing Darren Granger things.
Yeah.
The Eagles, Georgia Southern. We finally got to see Davis Brin doing Davis Brin things. 344, 4 touchdowns. It wasn't even that close of a game as they destroyed the Cardinals 40-3. And really that 3 was kind of a gimme late. I was impressed with this. I mean, I felt like this was a full dominating performance by Georgia Southern. really helped them to solidify that pushing down of the MAC conference below the Sun Belt. I love the game. It was great. It was a little boring to watch because they were so dominant, but it was still overall a great game for Georgia Southern.
Yeah, to me, a bigger danger right now to James Madison isn't Marshall. It isn't Georgia State. It's Georgia Southern. These guys play defense and they play a whole lot of offense. If Davis Brin isn't throwing a bunch of interceptions, they're looking at 4-0. This is one of these teams that I find to be the most fascinating in the Sun Belt East, maybe in the entire Sun Belt. I don't know what you think about that, Shane. That was kind of my observation that this team in the next three games that JMU has, this might be the most dangerous one they have.
Yeah, quite possibly. Because like you were saying before, Davis Brin doing Davis Brin things. I think the jury's still out on if the Davis Brin thing is the 4 touchdowns or if it's the 5 interceptions. And, going back to his, history at Tulsa, there was some of both from him. If they can get more consistency, more games like this, where he's not turning the ball over, Georgia Southern is going to be really tough to beat.
Guys, a win is a win is a win.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. There's no style points. As long as you have more points than the other team, it's a win. Old Dominion got a win on Saturday, 10-9 against Texas A&M Commerce. It was scoreless at the half. And really, A&M Commerce scored late. I think it was just under a minute to play. Did the ballsy thing you got to do when you're on the road, and the little guy going for the big guy went for 2, didn't quite get it. But man, that was a ugly game. Old Dominion, they were dominated. They had the ball 11 minutes less than the Lions. Didn't get to run as many plays as the Lions. 5 of 12 on third down conversions. Had 7 penalties for 88 yards, rushed for just 15 yards on the day.
Yeah, ODU's homecoming was somewhat ruined by tropical storm. They canceled basically everything but the football game, and the Monarchs played like they canceled the football game too. Like they just didn't look like they wanted to be there. Other than, Lamarian James, who keeps making huge plays for this team, with the game-saving interception on the 2-point conversion that would have won it. If you're ODU, you kind of just want to forget this ever happened and move on and, take the win and never think of it again.
Yeah, I like the post-game conference with Ricky Roddy having to, chastise social media fans for saying mean things about the team. I mean, anytime that your post-game conference is a lecture to social media people, it's going to be bad. Speaking of social media, you're kind of watching the ODU social media guy, posting the scores, and it's kind of funny. 0-0, 0-3. You're like, what is happening here with Texas A&M Commerce being so good with ODU? And didn't they end up pulling the starting quarterback after he threw 4 interceptions? I mean,
Grant Wilson had 3 interceptions, 70 yards, 5 of 11.
I mean, yeah, and the other guy had to come in and he had much better numbers. You just have to wonder, after beating Louisiana, you kind of thought that maybe ODU wasn't as bad as we had all made it out, and we kind of felt silly, right? And now maybe, I don't know, maybe they were lucky against the Cajuns.
And I know we don't preview games on this show, but wouldn't it be the most ODU thing that they go and beat Marshall this upcoming week?
Yes, because ODU is the weirdest, oddest team in the Sun Belt, and that could absolutely 100% positively happen.
Yeah, if they do, I think you probably end up writing that one off as a weird weather game, and if not, I don't know. You probably have some concerns if you're a Monarch fan.
Nobody wants to play ODU because you don't know what ODU going to get. Are you going to get kind Mr. or Dr. Jekyll or evil Mr. Hyde? You just don't know.
I told y'all the Jaguars were not for real. and they showed it again, losing to the Chips 34-30. Everybody had a great game. It was just a matter of South Alabama unable to close out the game there in the fourth quarter, giving up 14 points. I mean, Carter Bradley, 17-27, 2 touchdowns, 254. LaDamian Webb, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. Everybody's doing their part. They just didn't defensively close out the game.
Yeah, and the heartbreaking thing about that, Tibbs, it was in Mobile. I mean, how do you not in front of the home crowd put away the chips? But you don't underestimate the chips. And maybe that's what happened. I wrote that in my little review, that maybe they're looking ahead to this next game. I believe they got JMU next game. Did I get that right this time?
They do, yes.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they might have been looking ahead. I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, it might be too early to know what to make of Central Michigan, too. I mean, they played a weird, kind of a weird schedule. Or, I mean, not necessarily weird, but, they played Notre Dame, Michigan State, lost both those games. Squeaked by a New Hampshire team that seems like they're one of the better FCS programs this year. So, maybe they're actually decent. It's hard to say, but South Alabama's got to win that game at home, especially when you've got a lead late.
Yeah, and it, I think the Sun Belt came out with a stat of like we're 7 of 9 for out of conference games for week 4. It really should have been 9 for 9. I know we're about to get to the other game, but my God, to lose that at home against the Chips, and the Chips, you don't know if they're a good team or not. And historically, they have been pretty good. But man, you had that in the bag, Kane Womack, and you blew it.
Yeah, I guess that does lead us into the other one.
Yes, maybe we should talk a little bit about the other one.
The other, it's a nameless game there. The other one.
The other one.
Wyoming comes from behind to beat the Nears 22-19. Once again, App State dominated the game, nearly doubling the total yards that the Cowboys had. Just one play difference. And here's another crazy stat in that. Okay, App State doubled up the yardage on Wyoming. Time of possession, App State, 40 minutes, 25 seconds. Cowboys, 19 minutes, 35 seconds. Barely, just over a quarter.
Wow.
Just over a quarter.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to watch this one. I'm just, I'm looking at how it ended basically by the box score and the game tracker. And it's just kind of hard to fathom how you not only get the field goal blocked for the go-ahead winning touchdown, but then you drive down and you have the opportunity to at least tie it, and you don't even get a chance to kick that field goal. I mean, it's just couldn't have ended more upsettingly.
And
if you're a Mountaineer,
didn't the Cowboys
with 12 seconds?
Yeah, and didn't the Cowboys get a? Oh yeah, pick and then did the Cowboys get a kick return for a touchdown or something? Didn't they get a special teams touchdown too? Maybe I'm just thinking of the block punt.
No, they had a 75. They had a 75-yard run, and then the 62-yard field goal recovery for the TD, and that was the go-ahead points.
Wow. Yeah, watching this on Stat Tracker the whole time, it looked like the Mountaineers had it in hand. Although it was a little surprising that they weren't scoring a lot of points on them. Tibbs, I mean, you were talking about how the time of possession and the dominating stats. The one thing that wasn't really dominating were the touchdowns and the scores. And you got to be wondering if the fans in Boone, who are one of the pickiest fan bases you'll ever come across. Shane, you might want to not weigh in on this because you're already in trouble with the fans at Boone. But those guys are really picky, and you have to be wondering if Sean Clark is feeling some of the heat.
Possibly. I mean, it's just Laramie is a very, very, very difficult place to win. So when you play well enough to win there and you don't, it's just twisting the knife that much more.
Speaking of twisting knives, there were tridents thrown. There was a lot of rushing, a lot of passing yardage. The Bobcats put up 574 yards on the night to win 35-24, come from behind win over Nevada. TJ Finley, 295, 2 touchdowns and a pick. But Ishmael Madaldi, I think is how you say his last name, 216, 2 touchdowns, including a long of 46 yards. Guys, these Bobcats are for real.
Yeah, I thought that running back was going to get the SBC Player of the Week with that performance. Listen, Bobcats were down 17-0 early in the game. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a shocking upset. And I was in the press box at Arkansas State. We're like, okay, well, maybe this is the game where we kind of see where the weaknesses lie for the Bobcats. And G.J. Kinney and his team just kind of shrugged and said, all right, readjust. Came back with more offense. Finley was awesome. I think they got Hornsby in there a little bit too. Let's face it, guys, the Bobcats are for real. And if South Alabama keeps screwing around, and if Troy has some kind of weakness that they may have, it might be the Bobcats we see when the dust settles.
Yeah, and let's not underestimate that. Right now, it looks like the Sun Belt and the Mountain West are the two best G5 conferences. And so this week was huge with, 3 head-to-head matchups. App State didn't get it done for a while. It looked like Texas State was not heading in the right direction, and they ended up salvaging it we'll talk about the other game, but spoiler alert, the conference went 2-1 against the Mountain West, which very easily could have been 3-0. I mean, that's a big thing just when you're talking the Sun Belt as a whole.
Yeah, so salvage the dignity, but also salvage what really has turned out to be a magic season in San Marcos.
Yeah.
Jeremy got the luck of the Irish, I guess, or the luck of the Red Wolves, as the Red Wolves won their first Sun Belt Conference game of the year, 44-37 over Southern Miss, despite Frank Gore going over 100 yards, 132 yards, 1 touchdown. What'd you see there, Jeremy?
I saw a team that one player has completely transformed everyone. I'm talking about wide receivers are no longer dropping passes. Cornerbacks are no longer getting burned. Linebackers are making tackles. Even the band is on key because we've got this freshman quarterback named Jalen Rayner, true freshman. I think he might still be 17. He was 17 a few months ago. He might still be 17. He's out there making passes. He's out there making runs. 5 total touchdowns against Southern Miss, who was also desperate. They were a desperate team coming into Jonesboro. They were like, we've got to get a win. And Arkansas State's a great place to get a win. And they just couldn't get it done. At one point, Arkansas State had a 17-point lead, and they blew that 17-point lead. Southern Miss came marching back behind, guess who? Frank Gore. The guy is an animal. He hits you, and then he keeps going. I mean, it's just like yak yards for Frank Gore is crazy yards for Frank Gore. It's just crazy to watch him. But then Arkansas State settled down. Jalen Rayner put up a couple more touchdowns. And it was a great win for Arkansas State. Great win for Butch Jones. It was finally time to win a Sun Belt game that wasn't against the Warhawks.
Yeah,
Thank you for that,
I know we're not previewing next week or beyond. I realize that, but after week 2, I was wondering if Arkansas State could win more than one game this year.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at their schedule for the next few weeks, and I'm like, are they going to be 4-4, 5-3? At some point, they could. It looks like a completely different team, and I don't even quite know where it came from.
Yeah, you know what it all boiled down to was that the previous 2 starting quarterbacks, for all the talent they have, could not connect with the passing game. Rayner, not only can he run, make plays with his feet, but he can also make very accurate passes. It's actually kind of stunning to see him in action. I asked Butch Jones, what took you so long to start this guy? And he was like, went through his long, usual Butch Jones speak, and then finally settled on, and he's just 17. So he's just a kid. Why would you give the keys to this kid? He doesn't even know hardly how to shave, let alone, run a college football program. But the kid did it. So there's a lot of enthusiasm right now in Jonesboro. And we're hoping it continues against the Minutemen next week.
Raging Cajuns closed out the MAC schedule, downing a Buffalo 45-38. They ran all over him quite literally, with Jacob Cabody and DeLynn Washington each going over 100 yards. Cabody with 2 touchdowns in that. Zion Chris still behind center with Ben Woldridge being out, 249 yards, 2 picks, 1 touchdown. It was a pretty balanced attack there for the Cajuns, almost a straight 50-50 down the mark as they tallied just about 520 yards of offense. It was a good win, but I think that there was a whole lot more that was kind of left on the table with that passing game more than anything.
Yeah, what? Just kind of watching the game via Stat Tracker, it looked like the Cajuns had that game in hand for most of the game. And then the defense started giving up points late. So I don't know what happened at the end there, and I don't know what happened with the passing. But, Coach Michael D, I'm not even going to try his name because I always butcher it. He didn't seem too excited about that win in today's press conference. He was kind of like a win is a win. So I don't know. What did you think about that, Shane? Did you note that as well?
Yeah, I did. And I might be with him a little bit. I mean, I thought it was going to be maybe a 2 or 3 score game, and it ended up being, pretty darn close, and giving up 38 points to a Buffalo team that had trouble putting up points on anybody, I think is probably the main concern there.
Yeah, because when you think of Cajuns, well, at least when I think of Cajuns of the last few years, the defense especially with their linebackers, has always just been exceptional, and that doesn't seem to be the case this year. I don't know. I don't know if the Cajuns are back, after losing to ODU, but then picking up the big win the next week. It seemed like maybe they were back, but I think the verdict's still out there, Tibbs.
Closing out the week 5 schedule. Wow.
Yeah.
Where's
it's week 4.
Man, whatever. 4, 5.
Week 0.
It's going by too quickly anyway. James Madison, Utah State. This game was pretty evenly matched across the board. Both teams putting up over 500 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
Time of possession was within a few seconds of one another. I think the real difference of why it was closer than it probably should have been, 2 picks there by McLeod for the Dukes, still threw for 364, 4 touchdowns, then 3 fumbles. The backs just unable to hold on to the ball, but it was a costly win for the Dukes. They lost, was it Tidwell?
Nick Kidwell.
Offensive line.
Yeah, right tackle. Probably the one NFL prospect on the offensive line. That's a tough loss. It is one area where JMU can probably afford to lose somebody with the depth they have, but it was one of probably the top 10 or 15 players on the team, like if you rank everybody. So that hurts. We'll see what happens when they end up shuffling some guys around a little bit on the offensive line to make up for that.
Yeah, just sort of watching that game from afar, it looked like James Madison was going to pretty much embarrass Utah State in Logan. And then something happened where it was like Utah State just sort of figured something out and then started scoring points.
Yeah, I mean, the first quarter and a half was about as dominant as you're ever going to see from JMU. And it wasn't even like, oh, well, Utah State's making a ton of mistakes and it's piling up on them. It was just JMU completely controlling the line of scrimmage, which changed a little bit. But then it's also JMU secondary just continues to kind of miss assignments, give up big plays. I think that's probably the biggest concern for them right now is, they're just times where guys aren't where they're supposed to be, and it ends up being touchdowns.
Now, JMU giving up like less than 100 yards of rushing per week, right? But
Yeah.
the passing has been kind of crazy. And to give up a total of 500 yards is sort of seems to me uncharacteristics of a Duke's team that has been just outstanding on defense. Yeah, we talk about some of the strong teams out east. I have named the Dukes the kings of the Sun Belt for the moment because they've had such big wins, they've had such big games. But man, you kind of have to wonder, is that defense? Is that something a team like a Georgia Southern, for instance, can exploit?
Yeah, at this point, you look at JMU and you wonder, are they a team that's getting lucky to win at this point, or are they a team that just hasn't shown how good they can be yet, and they're winning games anyway? And I don't really know which way it's going to go for JMU.
Yeah, I know that there was some consternation on the internet about that defense, but everybody seems okay. I mean, 4-0 is 4-0, right? So
yeah,
already Coach Signetti's talking about the possibility of maybe finding a way to play for the Sun Belt Championship, the possibility of getting a bowl game. I know it's only 4 weeks into the season, but the way JMU is playing, you got to kind of figure that you've got to at least have those sort of visions, right?
He was making a futures bet is what really he was doing on the sideline with that phone.
That's right. Yeah. He's probably flipping out because he was going to lose that bet. But he got it. Good for Signetti. All right, we recapped the week, and it was a great week. It was a little disappointing, guys, that we didn't end up 9-9 for out-of-conference play. We really should have. You dropped the bag, Mountaineers. You dropped the bag, Jags, which we've come to expect from the Jags, right? I know Tibbs is still marshaling his bitterness about the Jags, and maybe well so. But maybe this bitterness is better placed in plugs, promos, and parting shots. Tibbs, I hand the conch to you.
Haley Von Voorhees
Oh,
made history over the weekend. She became the first woman that was a non-kicker to play collegiate football.
Oh, wow.
As she came in at the safety position for Shenandoah University in Winchester, Virginia. It's a D3 school. She got a QB hurry. Is it?
Yeah.
Got a QB hurry against Juanita College's quarterback. History was made, guys, and it wasn't just that the Sun Belt had another P5 win. We're changing the game one bit at a time.
Oh, that's very cool. I remember during a GoDaddy Bowl, Kent State had a female place kicker or like a field goal kicker. And we were all excited. I mean, she was warming up during at halftime kicking. We thought she was going to get in. And everybody in the stands was excited. Yes, we want to see, this woman make history in this bowl game. Didn't happen. I thought it was a missed opportunity. Glad to see that there's still feel-good stories out there like that.
And that is the big point here. It's the first non-kicking, because there have been women before that kicked and punted. First non-kicker to get in there. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Shane, can you top that at all? Do you just want to give up?
Yeah, probably should just give up. But no, I will toss out, our former War Hawk. You guys you stepped on me on Twitter before the show. You stepped on my parting shot. But former War Hawk Boogie Knight for my favorite team, the Soft Drink Challengers in the X League of Japan. 11 catches, 193 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Soft Drink Challengers are 2-0 and looking like real challengers in the X League of American football.
We had a DM from a guy that covers the X League that said he would be more than happy to come join us just for you, Shane.
Let's do it.
I would love to get a little more insight and inside to that league. That would be awesome. I guess, I guess I have a parting shot. I'm beginning to feel like a broken record. Okay, so here's what I'm asking you. How many loss-free teams, let's say it that way, does the Sun Belt have?
I think it's 3, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's 3. It's like, who is it? It's JMU,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia State, yeah,
Marshall.
Yeah.
and Marshall. Those are 3 pretty good teams, right? And all of them, well, maybe not Georgia State, but for the most part, some big wins, right? Like some high-profile victories. Then how is it that the Sun Belt is still not in the AP top 25? How is it that Fresno State, who beat UCLA, I guess that's supposed to be some accomplishment. How is it that the Sun Belt continues to be snubbed by the powers that be? What do we have to do? I mean, we keep saying we're the best group of 5 conference in the United States, and everybody seems to agree, yet we can't get our best teams within sniffing distance of a top 25 recognition. It drives me crazy. It makes me want to just like take every AP paper and tear it up. Now, I know you're a Heisman voter. You're not an AP top 25 voter, right?
Not for football. I might become one for basketball.
Okay. Because Shade, I don't know. It's almost like a confession to murder I'm about to make. It's just like, it just drives me crazy that we have to continuously make our case every week and still be ignored.
Yeah.
That's my party shot.
I'm surprised that there weren't more votes for the Sun Belt. I'm not surprised that they weren't ranked. Congrats to Fresno State. I'm glad there was some G5 teams in there, but
G5.
Yeah, but I'm surprised there weren't a few votes for, our 3 undefeated teams in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I don't get it. It just burdens me to the quick. And no matter how many times the Sun Belt acquits itself against the Power 5, it's just ignored. So I don't know.
That's why
I don't know. What tips? Give me some advice.
That's why we should start mailing out Tridents to all the voters.
And cell phones.